Hello. Got an audio clip here I'm going to play for you. It's approximately 55 minutes long. It is a conversation I had with a couple gentlemen quite a while ago regarding reclaiming your securities. It is a very, very good audio chit chat conversation, and I think you people will find it very enlightening. And at the end, there's a referral there to our blog, Restore the Kingdom of God, if you're interested in more information. And if you go there, be sure to click on each of the 3 click here buttons for additional information, including how to acquire or reclaim your securities information package. And I thank you for this, and hope all is going well for you. And God bless and love you. And do enjoy this audio, and it's very, very good. Thank you so much.
This is it because we had the Bible background to check it against. We were able to figure out. We were able to figure it out. There's people that have had this information and moved on because they simply cannot understand, especially the proxies. Like if we didn't talk to you, it would take you another 5 years probably to figure out how to rig up to reclaim it, because once you hit 25 and they file the abandonment papers, they probate you again, and you cannot reclaim that account yourself. You have to do it through a proxy. But just understand the parties to put the security agreement together. If you don't understand the Bible and a good amount of commerce, not like when people, I don't think half the people in the world understood what Winston Trout said. And even Winston was missing the big piece of the puzzle. So stuff like that, eh? But I know for a fact this is the answer. There's no other answer. We've been down and this one here lines up perfect with everything that's ever happened. It explains exactly why we won here. We had success there, but then you fail here. If you'd have had this piece a long time ago, you'd have been out and gone.
Right on. Well, I just want to share.
And a good passport that'll take you anywhere.
Yeah, I just wanted to share an experience we had. There was actually a friend in traffic court 3-4 years ago. I forget. This was on a traffic charge. I'm trying to get my head in the zone where you guys are, and I'm going through the Securities Transfer Act, the UCC, blah 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 blah, and he had an experience on a traffic charge, driver's license related. On the first appearance day in court, when I went to court that day, he approached the provincial prosecutor. He walked up to him. He showed him the birth certificate. He said, I'm presenting this not as evidence of my identity, but evidence of my interest, and I am here to release my interest for the settlement of any and all charges. And the prosecutor said, okay. There's a little bit of chit chat with the judge, and that was the end of the case. It was over.
That's pretty close. It's pretty close.
So is this just so I'm clear, is this the kind of thing we're discussing here? Because I'm seeing in the securities what I perceive he did there was a verbal endorsement.
Okay, but that's what it was an endorsement, not an endorsement.
Well, all I'm saying is he said what he said, and call it what you will, like endorsement, but it's what he said there. You know, I'm here to release my interest. This birth certificate identifies my interest. I'm here to release my interest for the settlement of any and all charges, and the case was done. It was finished. So is that the kind of thing? Is that the kind of thing we're talking about here?
He didn't get a check, did he?
No. I'm not going that far with it. I'm just trying to make. Is that sort of the perspective that you guys are coming from here in some degree?
Yeah, that's pretty close. That's about a quarter of the remedy.
Okay, fair enough. Just want to make. I'm just trying to want to get my head in the path and stick on the right path here, because, like, there's many paths to go down.
It is the right path, but he didn't see the complete deal. No. I trust you not to open your mouth to a soul, so I'm going to explain this to you again, and it'll take a couple of times before you get it.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Whoever is in possession of that security is the trustee and liable for the debt.
Okay, now when you're talking the statement of birth or the birth certificate?
The registration of live birth is the original security that was issued.
Yeah.
The birth certificate, once that registration of live birth was placed in trust, and why is there a trust? Because that's exactly why you've been talking about HCR 192 and Order in Council 664. When the system changed, everything was based on equal exchange of paper. So when your mother placed that security in trust, she didn't get equal value in exchange. There was a debt created on the books. Okay?
Okay.
That's what's being held in trust. Now, they acknowledged receipt of that, and they acknowledged the debt when they issued the certificate. If you read Article 8 and Article 9, you'll see that registration of live birth is a registered, certificated security. Whoever is identified on the certificate that was returned is the entitlement holder.
Yes.
Of that account.
Yeah.
Okay.
That brings one into securities entitlement, right?
That's right. But what are you entitled to?
Well, and good question. And so I'm just going reviewing this again this morning. So the securities entitlement. Then I go down to the part about a person is to be treated as holding a financial asset directly, rather than having a security entitlement with respect to the financial asset. If a securities intermediary holds a financial asset for that person, and the financial asset has not been endorsed to the securities intermediary or in blank. Is that the kind of thing we're talking about here?
That's exactly what we're talking about, but I'll interpret that for you. You can't make the connection.
Yeah, no, I'm not surmising anything. I'm just trying to make sure my heads are somewhat in the zone you guys are at. That's all I'm doing here right now. I'm not.
I'll interpret it for you. That guy is a custodian only of that security, because you had an obligation, once you got the certificate, to endorse it and return it so that he could become a securities intermediary and act on your behalf.
Exactly. Good. Perfect. We're on the same page.
Being as you're holding that certificate, you are the administration.
Yes.
So you didn't return it. They had no choice but to create an office for you so you could go and administrate your own securities account.
Gotcha.
But even then, the people don't have a fucking clue about commerce, administration, trust, nothing. So they were forced to, okay, the office is there, and if you guys are so pathetic you can't administrate it, we'll do it for you, but it's going to cost. Okay?
Yep. You betcha, yep.
So the minute you endorse the certificate, it's just like a stock certificate. You bought stock in a bank, endorse it and hand it back to the guy in the bank. He can be a proxy for you and vote and administrate that thing for your benefit, not for his.
Yes, that's right. So like a securities intermediary then.
They're all securities intermediary. What does Canada administrate?
Securities.
What else?
People. Sorry.
No. They cannot see a live man. There is no substance.
Yeah. No, I get that. I'm clear on that. I'm just pulling your chain.
Every second you spend trying to fit the live man into the system is a waste of fucking time.
Yep, you made that clear the first call there. I thought about that. And Roger Alvick and others used to speak about that, and so I'm back on point with that, and no argument, man. Right on.
There is no there can be no substance in that system. There's none. It's form only.
Yes.
That's why it says, you said financial asset, or what do they call it in the UCC? It's a financial
Asset.
asset. You click on that, it says security.
Yep, that's right. That's the very first. That's right.
Okay. Now, Canada is a corporation registered in Washington, D.C. with Edgar Securities Commission. They are registered and authorized to administrate securities. With all I mentioned that Canada tax treaty with the states in 1980 is because right off the hop, it's the President of the United States addressing Canada, hereinafter referred to as a foreign QI, qualified intermediary.
Yes.
That's it.
Gotcha. Yep.
Okay. All them fucking acts and statutes have nothing to do with you unless you're holding that certificate and you're trying to administrate.
Yes.
Okay? So the minute the certificate is properly endorsed on its face and returned to the custodian of the original security, now he becomes a securities intermediary and all claims are barred against that account.
Yes.
Except for your claims.
Yes.
Now, if you got control of that security when here was writing checks and issuing bonds, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You can authorize them to draw on that account. Can you not draw on it yourself?
You betcha.
Okay. So the minute that the record is corrected in their system, because all they can see is form.
Yes.
And this is the good thing about this is you don't have to dream up goddamn paperwork. All the paperwork is in their system. The whole system is set up for the beneficiary. All they did is assumed and presumed that you abandon that and they're the beneficiary.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm going to explain a court case to you. Whether it's any government agent, CRA, cop, anybody, the minute they make a claim on that security, first they strip your title. Who are you? So that they have access. You identify the account, the bond number, everything else. But every one of them claims that they make, they're making privately. They're underwriting that claim with their own securities.
Gotcha.
He draws up a claim against that security, then he takes it to a proxy and deposits it with the court. The minute the judge accepts that claim into his court, he gives it a file number, an account number, and deposits it. Now they float securities futures on that, what was drawn up.
Right.
Okay? What they did was they got your checkbook, drew up a check, signed the son of a bitch in your place, and now they're going to issue whatever they issue, a warrant, a summons, whatever. That's nothing more than to get your consent to the whole deal. They need a banker's acceptance.
Right.
And any type of appearance is a banker's acceptance on
Yes,
what they've drawn.
Yeah, I deduced that. Yep.
Okay? So the minute that judge accepted that into his court, he just became in breach of trust, securities fraud, and tax evasion. Because they never, ever fill out the tax form claiming that as abandoned property and paying the capital gains on it. Ever. So you can see why if you went to court or they dragged you in and you refused to, that's not me, and kiss my ass, I don't consent to this, they got instant panic because not only are you holding up that one, you're holding up the whole bundle of mortgages for the last calendar 90 days. So when we went and liened one court case, you liened the whole bundle for his calendar.
Gotcha.
They work on a 90-day rotation.
Yes.
That's why it's so important for him to set his calendar with the clerk. What he's asking her is, when is this batch of mortgages mature and the cutoff date, so we can get into the next one. We don't want to schedule a court date when it gets close to the cutoff.
And why is that?
Well, because there's a cutoff line for this 90 days of bonds, mortgages that we took in, and we don't want to cloud it up right on the deadline. So that's why they'll put court cases off sometimes in 2 or 3 weeks, and the court is overloaded for a couple of weeks when they carry on the next new batch of bundles.
Gotcha.
So what if you your first mistake is walking in there? That's considered an appearance, and I don't care if you say, I'm here on special appearance or I'm agent for. They don't give a shit. There's 3 types of appearance, and every one of them constitutes a banker's acceptance.
Right.
Okay, so once you get the paperwork done and your status corrected in the master file at CRA, you can no longer ever appear in one of them courts. Your appearance instantly constitutes contempt of court, treason, breach of trust on their part.
Right.
If they ever did, the minute you're under arrest, there's no question who you are, is there?
Yep.
You're the beneficiary. Now, there's a fella sitting in jail, went to jail for tax evasion and a multitude of other things, but on his intake form or committal order, no early release, because usually you serve 2/3 or whatever. They wanted to make an example out of him. No early release. So he's in jail, and they call him to go to court in jail on another charge. I don't know if you've ever been there or done that, but you're in the jail, and they got the judge on a screen or the phone and the crown prosecutor, and they're holding court. But this was a pre-trial hearing for this next charge. And all the guy said was, "Can I have your name for the record?" to the judge. Absolutely. And she spelled out her name. And he said, "Okay. And I'm in your custody, right?" "Yes, of course." "Okay." So they carry on blabbing, the judge and the crown, trying to come up with a court date for this thing. And an hour later, "Well, is that all right with you, Mr. So-and-so?" "Well, no, I'm in jail. I'm not going to be here that day." Like, what the fuck? So anyway, he said it again. "So you said your name was this?" "Yes." "And I'm in your custody, right?" "Yes, of course." "Well, that would make me the beneficiary and you the trustee. I got all my bills at the courthouse. My mortgage needs to be paid." Bang! She hangs up the phone. At 8 o'clock that night, the spring pops on his door and they kick him out on the street. He gets home and his mortgage is paid up. Figure that one out.
Beautiful.
That was just one, not that long ago. And then, guess what the stupid fuck did?
He fucked himself.
He shows up in the court a month later to appear on the charge that they were talking about when he was in jail, and the judge looks at him and says, "Well, for the purposes of this hearing, then, I guess I have no choice but to assume you are the trustee."
So he shot himself in the
The
foot.
next day, the sheriff was there to foreclose on the house.
Right. So yeah. So he went back in. Got it. So he was
Okay, well-
basically he was out and didn't know it. He was free and he didn't know it.
Well, what do you mean? He was out. They opened the cell door and kicked him out in the street at 8 o'clock at night. He had the phone to get somebody to pick him up.
Well, but that's what I mean. That they kicked him out, but he turned around and went back in a month later, and not realizing that he didn't have to go back in.
Well, that's the understanding that goes along with it. But that guy didn't have one shred of paperwork done anywhere. He just made the claim.
He didn't know what you know so far about securities or anything. He just knew that much.
Yes. Well, we didn't either when Sean did the thing in the traffic court with "I'm here to release my interest." That was just we were talking about this kind of stuff, and he just gave it a shot, and it ended the matter.
Okay, no.
Now let me clarify that too, though. Is that I think that was a stroke of luck that the Crown knew what he had, and the prosecutor. That's not going to mean all prosecutors are going to accept that.
Every time, because you're the holder of that. What's going on?
Typing?
I don't know. It's echoing like a bastard. Every time you go in to buy anything, get a loan at the bank, purchase a car, purchase anything, all you're doing is saying exactly what that guy said in court, but you're signing a security agreement allowing them to attach to a portion of the value of the original pledge.
Right.
Okay? So if you endorse that thing on its face and return it to the custodian so he can become a securities intermediary, you keep reading in that Article 8 what exactly happens. That securities intermediary is obligated to protect that account from all claims.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I've read that.
Okay, and if you actually reclaim it properly, you can do it right back to your 18th birthday. Some people made a mistake and reclaimed it as of today, and they can't go back and fill out all the tax forms, like the 1099As, to reclaim all the claims that were ever made against that estate.
Right.
Okay, now I asked you a question. Your entitlement, what are you entitled to? What does that account entitle you to?
Hang on. For the account, I believe it's rights and property interests.
The only property in that entire system is that security.
Yes, and that's what
They
I figured.
cannot recognize, they can't recognize land, goods, men, flesh, cars, trucks. They cannot recognize any substance in that system. That's why it's all done on title. Okay?
Yeah.
The only property that you can reclaim in this system is that securities account.
Yeah, and going back to the original.
Everything that you have was generated, derived from that. So they can't recognize real property or anything. But what you're entitled, the entitlement of that account is you're entitled to the debt side of the ledger. Every time any instrument was drawn on that estate, they created credit, brought credit into the system. But because you're dealing with even exchange and double entry bookkeeping, every time $100,000 of credit is drawn on a charging instrument, there's an equal amount of debt that results automatically by operation of law in order to zero the books. Because at the end of the business day, all accounts have to be zero. So every time they draw on that thing, they're bringing new credit in, and that's theirs. But there's an equal value of debt with interest results from that. And people will never figure it out because they've been trained to avoid debt. I don't want debt. But everything that you bought and paid for in your life, every time you got a check, it was debt, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Isn't a check a debt instrument, rolling tender?
You betcha. Yeah, all of it is.
Okay, so the administration, there was credit extended to the administration. Where did it come from? You. So
Yeah.
if there's a national debt with interest owing, who's it owing to?
Me. People.
That's right. And they have all the paperwork is there. You don't have to invent it. Once you see it, you'll start looking at these forms. Revenue Canada is your best friend. They're the top of the ship pile.
Yeah, I figured that. No.
Okay, the minute your status is corrected in their master file, you start filling out the forms to reclaim everything, right back to your 18th birthday. And all you're doing is reclaiming the debt and the interest that's been held in escrow for you. The heir. If he ever fucking repents and returns.
Yes. Now, I do have a question. I was looking at... Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was looking on the... you're talking about changing your status with Canada Revenue Agency. I just happened to be looking at the application yesterday for the social insurance card, and I noticed up in the top left-hand corner, they got 7 boxes. One of them is change of status. Then they go down to line 10. And I was showing my friend yesterday, actually, and I said, I'm pretty sure probably when I filled out the original application for a social insurance number, I ticked off that I'm a Canadian citizen. Chances are that's what I did. So I see on here, this form, there's a box for change of status, and then we go to line 10, and there's 5 options there. Canadian citizen, registered Indian, permanent resident, temporary resident, and other.
Yep.
Is this what you're talking about for changing the status this way?
No.
That's the T10.
No, he's talking about the application for a social insurance number.
Yeah, but this allows for change of status after you have a number. But that's not the form you're talking about there.
No, that's not the form we're talking about at all.
Okay.
To start with, when they cloned your estate, they cloned the provinces, they cloned your estate, they cloned the whole country, they cloned your churches, they cloned everything. And when they did that, they showed you the remedy. You have to have a proxy that's recognized in their system now to go back and reclaim that account. Now think about that. If you sit down at a bank, and first of all, you make an application. Every time you do anything, you have to apply. And all they're doing is saying, okay, if you're incompetent, you can't administrate. First, we have to get you to identify the account. What's your birthday? So they can tap that security, and they need a blank endorsement on that application to give them power of attorney to administrate. Right?
Yeah.
And once they do that, they put a security agreement in front of you, and you sign the security agreement assigning an interest in that account to them, don't you?
I have to take your word for it. It's been a long time since I've done that, but it sounds right, yeah.
Well, you can type into your computer security agreement, and a million different versions of a security agreement will come up depending on the application. Security agreement to buy a car. Security agreement to purchase a house. Security agreement, blah, blah, blah. The GSA form, once you understand this, the Form 90, when it's filled out properly, releases the dirt, that's you, and the 91 releases the security. But that's not what we're dealing with either. you can use those forms to get out of court or jail. But what we're doing is going back and correcting the record so that you don't have to fuck with all the courts and that shit.
Right.
The minute your status is changed in the master file at Revenue Canada, all claims are barred. So that goodbye judiciary, goodbye banker, goodbye everybody, because none of them, being the trustee, could possibly have a claim against you.
Correct.
If they did, they would be admitting that they're a trustee administering the estate for their own benefit. That can't happen.
Yes. Yeah. Big no.
So the forms that a T1013 has a lot more to do with it than anything. Because you just take the original trust, go back to where you pledged the security, and they acknowledged receipt of that security with the certificate. But there was no will with it, so it was an implied trust, and everything has to be assumed and presumed. So now when you go back and correct the record, what you're doing is saying, no, I didn't abandon those. And now we're expressing the trust on paper.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Makes perfect sense.
Okay? So
Yeah.
it's no longer implied, assumed, and presumed. And they know exactly. They have to follow that UCC and the PPSA. So when the heir finally comes back from being lost at sea and says, no, I'm not the government, you are, here it is, now fucking administrate it, and this is how you're going to administrate it. From this day forward, all bills coming to that estate are going to be endorsed properly and sent to you for fucking zeroing of accounts. And the only way they can zero the account is to issue a check for the debt.
And they issue the check.
Well, they have to.
Okay. Tax evasion.
If somebody draws on that account, the minute they got the credit, so the system gets the credit, but there's an automatic resulting debt that has to come back to you in order to zero the accounts. That's why it's all piled up and held in escrow.
Gotcha.
And you don't have to invent the paperwork. The paperwork is all in the system to reclaim it. But you have to correct the record in the master file and have a recognizable account for them to send it to.
Right.
And that is very complicated because we've been looking at every other thing on the planet. It is really simple in the end when you see the answer, but until somebody walks you through it, you'll spend the next 10 years going nuts trying to figure out how to rig up a correct proxy that they don't have their hooks in.
Okay, explain this proxy. Can you explain this proxy thing to me a bit? What you're saying there? Like I know what a proxy is, or I have a rough idea what a proxy is. You know, if I'm a shareholder in the company, I can sign a proxy. Like I used to have that with the insurance company, I think, a long time ago. You know, so somebody else can vote on my behalf, more or less.
Okay, when the people started filing UCCs and thought the UCC was a lien. The UCC and the PPSA is not a lien. It's notice of a lien.
Correct. Yep.
You're giving notice. Okay, so if they ever call you on your bullshit lien notice and say, well, okay, where's the security agreement that generated this lien? Can you produce one?
Well, I guess obviously you better.
Well, the banker gets you to sign as the debtor on the security agreement, and they can produce a security agreement to back their lien.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, you need to have it. I get that. I'm aware of that.
Okay, so now sit down and try parties on the security agreement when you're dealing with about 6 different parties, and there can only be 2 on there. But when people TPSA, they were trying to tell them there's notice of lien that this live man has an interest in this dead fiction. You're trying to bring substance into form. And when you did that, the name is the same, so it just collapses and reverts back to the original trust. So all the UCCs, which weren't liens, they were notice of a lien, what lien?
Yep.
Okay, so every minute you spend trying to bring the live man into the system is a waste of time. They can only recognize person, right? So you need to rig up a person with a business number recognizable by the system that doesn't have all the hooks in it as a trustee. So what you're looking for is to thread the needle so that in the end, what you're going to have is a person, and it's a foreign entity resident in Canada.
Okay.
Okay, we can help you with that, because if we don't, it will take you 200 years to figure it out. But,
If you had a corporation from years back that had filed,
right.
that's
We, when we realized the answer, as luck would have it, South Corporation sitting there for the last, I don't know how many years, but it had never applied for a tax number, employee number, GST number. All it had was a business number, recognizable. So instantly, because you're the legal representative of the debtor, we had sat down as the CEO of this limited company, and as the legal representative of the debtor, we're able to sign on behalf of the debtor to assign full interest in that security to this corporation that we're in control of. We're the CEO. So now, if you understand how this applies, since 1960, the federal court rules changed and said from this day forward, all rights will be vested in the form of a lien interest. And if you walk into any court case and you could look at the judge's notes, all he's doing is trying to figure out who is the secured party, who has a lien interest, and who has power of attorney, and how did they get it. It's not about this statute and that statute and blah, blah, blah. So the minute that we sign a security agreement assigning that interest to a proxy that's under our control, who could possibly walk into court and produce a higher lien or power of attorney?
Nobody. So the corporation is the proxies through the corporation.
But that isn't a good proxy. We used that one to cover our asses until we got the right one in place.
Gotcha.
So you're going to end up with one proxy that's a secured party liener, and another proxy in the public that's a secured party lien holder. And that will be Minister of Finance who's in possession of the security.
Right. And that's for Canada.
He has to be the lien holder in order to execute everything that you're going to demand from him.
Right. So he needs to be secured, in other words.
Yeah, well, there's no way that he can't be secured, but we put just a one-line indemnity clause in our security agreement to cover him. Because our lien, as the secured party liener, in the security agreement, we're also assigning him as to be the lien holder.
Right. So in a sense, that's where you're releasing your interest to him.
That's right, so he can get to work for you.
Yeah, exactly, to settle up the accounts.
Okay, because the only reason you're in court is because you didn't zero accounts anywhere. Everything you did was an uneven exchange, and they have to establish a lien against that certificate so they can zero the accounts.
Right.
Because you thought you were God, but you're not really God.
I'm clear on that now. I know who the sovereign is.
So you think about that for a few minutes, and if you sit down on a stone by yourself, if you understood one word I said this morning, you'll be able to see the remedy opens up. It doesn't matter where you are, what you do. There's always remedy. Nobody has power of attorney over you, and nobody, not one of the administration, could possibly have a lien interest in that estate. They can't possibly. If you walked into that court and looked around and said, okay, you over there, Peckerhead, you produce your written delegated authority to administrate this estate. Where's your power of attorney? And you produce a registered lien interest to the court. Where is it? Because I got one here. I know I got one. Where the fuck do you get standing? If you don't have a lien interest in this thing, get the fuck out of here. You got no standing. Does that make sense?
You betcha.
Okay.
Now, if you've given that to the Minister of Finance, what are you doing there then?
That's what I told you. After this record is corrected, you can no longer walk into one of their pagan courts.
Exactly. Fair enough. We're on the same page.
And if one of their assholes drags you in, when that happens, title merges with equity, and you have foreclosure. Don't you?
Yep. Yeah, you mentioned, yes.
When a trustee drags you into the court and tries to administrate that estate that you have full lien interest in for his own benefit, he just breached the trust. The whole thing reverts back to you, and you have foreclosure. And you want to see them get foreclosed on in court? If they drag you in there and you just look at them and say, I know fucking well you don't have power of attorney, and I know you don't have a lien interest, and I know that you are a trustee because you got a check last month. Now that you've done this and the judge has accepted it into his courtroom, he just became the trustee liable for the whole works. And the whole trust collapses and reverts back to you. So that's why this judge last spring, when they were trying to put the lady in jail, got up, said, I'm going to stand down, and fucked off. And he told the clerk, quit recording. He was caught in a breach, and we were going to foreclose on him. And
so what does it mean? What does it mean when you foreclose on him?
When title and equity merge, you have foreclosure.
Yeah, but I understand, but what effect does that have on the judge? Just shuts him down?
The fucker is in breach of public trust because he's a trustee, and he's actually trying to administrate that thing for his own benefit.
Okay.
Because it's already on record that you haven't abandoned those securities, and it's in their books you're the entitlement holder. So you just came back from the dead. They can no longer assume and presume all kinds of horse shit.
Right.
They have to administrate that estate for your benefit now. There's no assuming and presuming that you're lost at sea and that you abandon that for their benefit and all kinds of shit.
Yes. Perfect.
So you just, once you understand it, and they drug you in there because you're sure as fuck not going to walk into any court on your own steam. That would constitute breach of trust on your part also.
Right.
Okay, so if they want to drag you in there, there's no question who the beneficiary is once you're under arrest, is there?
Nope, that's
I don't
right.
think anybody ever figured that out. If a cop puts you under arrest, there's no question. He's the trustee and you're the beneficiary. You're in his custody.
Yes. Yep, fair enough. Yep. Good point.
Okay, so I would look at that judge and say, excuse me, sir. I never abandoned them securities, and I'm on record as the entitlement holder. And whether you know that or not, I don't care. But what you're going to do now is you're going to exchange the dismissal order for the claims drawn on that fucking estate. And you're going to have the clerk do a full accounting of the whole thing, and you're going to write a check before the end of the business day. Or you're going to fill out the tax forms that are required to claim that I abandoned those securities. And you're going to report the earnings so that I can go to Revenue Canada and get my debt back.
Interesting.
And if you don't file the tax forms and claim it, I will do it for you. But when I do it now, because the trust has collapsed, not only am I foreclosing on the debt side of the ledger, I'm going to foreclose on the credit side too.
Right.
Okay? Well, you can't imagine what one court case is worth.
No clue. I've heard that some stuff tossed around there, but no clue. I think you mentioned quite a bit.
Yeah. It's more than you could possibly fucking imagine. They don't build them buildings and pay assholes, hundreds of assholes to drive around in fancy cars, and like, it's mind-boggling. Prisoner bonds are one of the biggest generating revenue things on the planet. So you're building super prison because it's big money.
Yes, yeah, that I know. Evil shit, but yeah.
Well, just a shitty little court case is worth $10 million.
Wow. So you'd like to get the check?
Because, like, you take a mortgage, say you ask the bank, you think you're going in to borrow $100,000. So by the time they get through the rigmarole of amortization and all the interest and blah, 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 that note is actually $250,000, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now they have the original issue, the promissory note. They deposit that in their books as an asset. They mirror the credit into an account. Then they securitize. That means sell the note to leverage it 10 or 12 times. But they also issue a futures bond. They're betting on whether you're going to pay it or not, and that's trading on the market also.
Right.
When you take a look at the mortgages, the Bush plan went in and deregulated the whole thing so that some guy with a wheelbarrow and no job could get a mortgage for $200 million if he wanted. And then they went, who do you think made money on the housing, the mortgage crisis? The guys that bet that there's no way that nigger that don't have a job can pay
Exactly.
the mortgage.
Yep. That's right. Yep.
Or the guy that said, no, I think he'll pay. So all that securities fraud that was going on there, the entire record of all the insurance company securities, the mortgages, IRS, that was all in Building 7 at the World Trade Center, wasn't it?
Yep. So I hear.
Well, any reason why that had to disappear?
I don't know.
Well, Kenneth Starr was investigating securities fraud 20 years ago. The paper turned him into a terrorist and a retard, but it didn't stop with him. There was lots of people investigating all the securities fraud going on. So they had to get rid of the evidence, didn't they?
Gotcha. Yep, and a lot of it.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
if you sit on a rock and think about all the remedies now that you know, the minute that thing is endorsed and returned and that guy is no longer a custodian, he's a trustee, a securities intermediary, and all the acts and statutes apply to who?
Him.
That's right. Do they apply to you now?
No, God, no.
No. And once you get your newfound status and you're given a new name to operate, and you go to the passport office and say, I want a foreign diplomat passport, do you need a driver's license?
No.
And do you think that some copper acting privately is going to come out and make a claim against that estate?
He would be stupid to do so.
That's right, because if they drug me in there and you don't even, oh, I got to cover a lot of ground here. If that happens, you never appear in court. You sit down and put your paperwork in a little envelope and you mark it private trust deposit and you register mail it to the judge and he will open that and it's a foreign judgment. And that foreign judgment will override any fucking thing there. And it's got a directive right in it. This is what you're to do with this claim. You're to exchange the dismissal order for the claims drawn on that account. You have the clerk do a full accounting and write the check to this estate.
Right on. Same as the other situation.
That's right. Now, when that judge is sitting in there trying to get you to answer to the name, whose bond do you think is underwriting that whole fucking thing?
His.
That's right. Until he gets you to make an appearance and give it a banker's endorsement, and that can happen the minute you walk through the door. You don't even have to open your mouth. He's here? Good. I don't care where he goes from now on. We're working on getting these bonds perfected and cashing in on that claim.
Yep.
You can stand there and blab. They don't give a fuck if you go to court for the next 100 years because every time you appear, they're billing the estate.
Yep. That's right.
So you never appear in court again. And if you appear, it's by way of a foreign judgment, special trust deposit.
Gotcha. That's okay.
So, and the only thing you're doing appearing is to foreclose on the whole fucking thing.
Yep. Cool stuff, man.
Now, take a look at bank mortgages. Somebody's losing their house. I can put 4 lines on a piece of paper, fax it to the bank, and not only will they fuck off, they might even send somebody to your door to try and settle to keep your mouth shut.
Beautiful. 4 lines, eh?
Yeah. Yep, 4 lines.
Now, is this before or after you've made the connection with the securities intermediary and had the status corrected, so on and so forth?
No, substance always overrides form, so it doesn't matter if I got the form done. When that guy walked into the court and handed the Crown his certificate and said, I'm willing to assign a portion of that to settle the debts, he actually gave him the whole fucking court case, and the Crown thought, that's good. We'll take it. How much can we fucking generate from this?
Gotcha. So, gotcha. So, on one hand, he was liberating himself to give him access to the account.
Right.
For whatever amount they want.
he got his ass out of there, but he gave them fuckers a blank check.
Check. Yep. That's yep. Exactly. I perceived that's what it was. He was endorsing it in blank, pretty much. There's no restrictions on that. So
if you take that birth certificate and endorse it with an E on the back, you can assign a portion to somebody. You can limit them to how much they can get. If you just say, take the fucking thing and do whatever you want with it, don't worry, they're going to draw one fuck of a check on it.
yes. Okay, I got that. That makes perfect sense, man. Got it. Perfect.
Okay. We're not endorsing the back of it. We're endorsing on the front. And an endorsement is a directive from a beneficiary.